Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to Mission Evolution Radio Show, where we share the latest information and leading-edge thoughts to support the path to unity and enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring unification, the marriage of individual and collective intelligence. Unity consciousness is a topic often included in any discussion of evolution and enlightenment. As we move into the higher frequency of the new era, our interrelatedness is becoming increasingly available. How will this change the face of our interactions as individuals and as organizations? Will we be able to evolve beyond the dog-eat-dog mentality so prevalent in corporations? Is it possible to cooperate and work as a continuum rather than in competition? What can be the result of working as a unified force in family, business, and community? With us to explore these possibilities is Jeddah Mali, the Executive Director and Founder of Intelligent Life Ltd. Intelligent Life delivers training programs for leaders and organizations seeking a completely new approach to the age-old dilemma, how to make personal lives, business, and society work effectively as a continuum. Intelligent Life is a consulting company specializing in the concept, practice, and application of natural intelligence within. Intelligent Life works alongside leaders and organizations to implement a universally beneficial model to stimulate change from within, which can scale across societal and global levels. Her website is www.intelligent.life. Jeddah, thanks so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
My pleasure.
So you're in New York City right now, huh?
I am, the Big Apple.
So what educational background do you have that led you into what you're doing?
Say that again, Gwilda.
That's okay. What educational background do you have that led you into what you're doing?
Nothing that was so specific to what I'm doing now, but I was born with a sort of inbuilt curiosity for how things work. So even as a young person, even before I started school, I was always looking at the people around me, I was looking at the world around me, with a fairly discerning eye, always looking to see how does that work, why does that work that way, and what can we do differently. So I would say it really was the school of life that educated me. I have been all around the world, met many, many people, been exposed to many different teachings and traditions, and that's all had an effect. Actually, talking of qualifications, I do have a qualification in anthroposophy, which is the study of spiritual science. And you might wonder why that didn't come to mind straight off. But I studied it from the point of view of how to educate children. And what I was always interested in right from the beginning was how to educate adults, because I don't see children as being the problem for how we got to where we are. It's really our adulthood that shapes the world around us. So it was that stage of life that I really wanted to affect.
Affect the adults, and you can help the children out, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So what is natural intelligence?
We describe it different ways, but basically it's the operating code of how energy works, energy building, the basic building block for all of life. It is the sort of single unit that everything is made from. And so it's really the operating code for how energy is structured, how it functions, and what qualities it contains, because that gives us the formula for how to operate as human beings and interact with every other aspect of life.
So it sounds like you're talking about the quantum level.
Yes, it definitely applies on the quantum level. And I know there's been a lot of talk about this lately, how the quantum level applies to the macro level. And, even in quantum mechanics, they readily admit that there is a disconnect. Some of the principles which apply in quantum mechanics don't necessarily seem to demonstrate their behavior in human populations. But what I have found by investigating this, is that you can get a lot of clues from that quantum level. And actually, if we use the operating principles of the quantum level, they do actually scale up. It's just that most people are used to looking at human behavior on the sort of day-to-day level rather than the potential level, and therefore they don't necessarily extrapolate that quantum level out.
So if people were to become more educated in and mindful of cooperating with the quantum level design, that could increase our effectiveness, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the key word here is experience. We need to experience the quantum level rather than just learn about it. Otherwise, the quantum physicists would be the wisest people on the planet. And even though they're clever, they're not necessarily the wisest people on the planet. So to develop that wisdom, we need to take what is conceptually possible on a quantum level and experience it. It's only with experience that we educate our consciousness and are then able to implement what we learn and understand in the world.
So what tools are available to achieve that end?
Well, we at Intelligent Life, we certainly provide a program which covers that range of concept and practice and application. And we run training courses, we have CDs available. At the moment, we are building a tech platform which will host all of the work and be interactive for the user. We also have, live retreats and seminars. So there's a range of tools available. But generally, sorry.
That's okay. It seems like there have been tools in ancient history that work with the quantum level that are considered more magical today. Can you speak to that?
Well, I'm a pragmatist, and I'm very, very down to earth about this. And one of the reasons for that is, having studied pretty much every philosophy and religion and, so-called magical approach out there, what I found was not a lot of that was translating into making our world a better place. Certainly, it had a massive impact on the adherents who practiced it. But it stayed fairly encapsulated within those areas. So for me, for many, many decades now, I've been interested in how can we use this knowledge to actually make the world that we live in a different place, actually forge a different future, take us to a different kind of outcome, because the trajectory we're on is not remotely magical.
It's a little troublesome, isn't it?
It's a little troublesome, and it's very sobering.
Do you see us as having an opportunity to evolve as a species at this time?
Absolutely. I couldn't put it better myself. There's a massive opportunity. We've always had that opportunity. Evolution of consciousness is pretty much, in broad terms, the only opportunity out there. And we're all involved in it to some extent, whether we realize it or not. But a lot of us live our lives fairly blind to that opportunity, and therefore we don't realize the potential that's there for us. But I would say absolutely. Right now there's a massive waking up of humanity in many, many different ways. Food and architecture, the environment, transport, in areas that we wouldn't normally think of as being, seats of awakening.
What do you think is the largest obstacle between us and participating in this awakening at this time?
I would say for the mass of humanity, it is simply that we don't know. So we could call it ignorance in the true sense of the word, just simply not knowing that it's available. You have to look fairly hard, and the information available is fairly sparse if you truly want to understand the raw mechanics of life. There are religions available, there are philosophies available, but they tend to be packaged in a fair amount of, ritual or tradition, and that can sometimes be hard to wade through and sometimes hard to relate to, particularly for the Western user. It's very rare to find, the bald mechanics of life laid bare. So that's what we've tried to do, because the...
So is it because the traditions were designed for the people of that time, more tribal-like people, and it doesn't translate well?
Yeah, it's partly that, but it's also partly that as consciousness evolves, it is moving into, you mentioned in the beginning, as we move into higher and higher frequencies. As we do that, our ability to perceive and understand and therefore act upon changes. So, the opportunity is changing. The opportunity is always conscious evolution, but how we carry that out and what we need to learn changes as it evolves. And therefore, it's, our teachings need to evolve as well. And some of those teachings are, couched in a language and a time when those lessons were important.
They're still important. It's just how do you get them across, right?
Yes, I would say so. Although I feel that the goalposts do move. Enlightenment, as many people see it, is a sort of a one-stage game, and you just need to reach that. But actually, as we evolve, the goalposts of enlightenment are also moving. In the days when we're going
to have to pick up on the goalposts of enlightenment on the other side of a commercial break. Okay. Jeddah and I will return shortly, so don't go away. You're listening to the Mission Evolution Radio Show, coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
welcome back. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. To stay abreast of all the wonderful information and tools we have, visit our website, missionevolution.org. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka, and our guest this hour is Jeddah Mali. Her website, www.intelligent.life. Jeddah, we were just talking about the moving goalpost of enlightenment, and this fascinates me because it seems like there's this overlording belief that there's a place to arrive to, and what you're telling me is maybe there's not.
Yes, and it depends on where you stand as to what you see also. So I was just about to say that, in times gone by, enlightenment was considered just to be able to hold your consciousness relatively still in the present moment and to operate from a sense of knowingness. But as we evolve, as we pass those previous landmarks for enlightenment, then the frequency of enlightenment also moves further ahead. And that's it's almost like a light ahead of us drawing us forward. And that is governing the progress and also the magnetism of all the human souls that are, engaging in this process. So
like the proverbial carrot.
Exactly. But from another point of view, and this is why it's so frustrating for so many people, there is nowhere to get to because what we are seeking is available to us all the time. Now, we've all heard this before. That is not a new thought. But the amount of people who know that idea don't necessarily practice it. They are still looking ahead, thinking that, my knowingness is going to come to me in the future, which completely obviates the opportunity that we have in the present moment to access that. So even though consciousness is evolving, and that seems to us like it's a time-based reality, on the other hand, that which we are seeking is available to us all the time. Now, that eternal, available energy in the present moment doesn't change. So that stays the same. But what does change is our conscious ability to notice it, to connect with it, to understand what we're experiencing, and to operate from that place. And so that really, what I just described, defines that process of conscious evolution. But that which we're connecting to doesn't change.
I wish I could quote the person's name that did this interesting proof through mathematics that the causality is equal parts past and present, but only happens past and future, but only happens in the present. Is this kind of what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. So the idea of past and present can only really exist now. So even, we do this experiment when we have big groups together just for a bit of fun to say, try to leave the present moment. And some people will cite, I'm imagining the future or I'm remembering the past, but you're still doing that in the present moment. So we as human beings, we as all creation are absolutely wedded to the present moment. We cannot leave. That is the only place in which life exists. And therefore, if we want to look for answers to what life might be and how we can live it well, we have to look in the present moment. That's the only option we have. It's also interesting that consciousness as a human faculty, the ability to notice one's experience, that only operates in the present moment too. So the design of life is giving us tons of clues as to where it is, how it's showing up, and how it's designed. And we need to be willing to work with that in order to access it.
If we become more and more willing to work with that and accessing it, is it going to give us power over outcome?
Yes, within the extent that it's set up to give you power over outcome. So because the design of existence is fixed, and when I say fixed, I don't mean limited, but it is fixed. It's already decided. It doesn't change. It isn't whimsical. Because that is fixed, what changes is our role, our interaction with it. So all the diversity we see in terms of experience and growth and understanding and change and outcome is really just an expression of our interaction with something that is fixed. So yes, it gives us power over outcome, but it isn't going to make things possible that simply aren't possible through that design. So we're really not looking to create a set outcome. What we're looking for is to further our ability to interact with that fixed energy and evolve through that interaction.
So basically find our sweet spot on the wave.
Yes, and because it is fixed and it is amply provisioned within it, the energy of life has every single provision within it. So we are never going to run out. We're never going to get bored. We're never going to exhaust it. We're never going to utilize all of our faculties, then sit around twiddling our thumbs and say, now what next? What's the next buzz thing? So the provision within the energy of life is so ample that we will never get to the end of it. And hence the game is on.
You mentioned that we're entering higher frequency times, or the frequency is raising at this time. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Well, there's two reasons. It depends how far out you want to go in your explanation. One reason is that the leading edge of human consciousness is raising, and as that happens, we naturally influence not only just our own experience but our environment. And we know through the beauty of studying quantum mechanics that those environments are not isolated. They are constantly in a state of interaction. So as we evolve, naturally the whole evolves. So the sort of pervasive environment, conscious environment of the planet is quickening, if you like. The other reason that takes a little bit more stretching to get your head around is the fact that the beings who are non-incarnate, who govern what happens here on Earth and how it evolves, are giving us a lot of help and providing those frequencies for us.
Does it have to do anything? Does it have anything to do with our relative positioning in the galaxy at this time?
No, it doesn't, because that's a sort of geographical location, whereas this is a dimensional one.
Oh, so this is interdimensional.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does conscious evolution mean to you?
It means that our ability to perceive, experience, understand, and interact with the design of life, it is that progress that is represented by how we look, how we feel, how we understand, how we behave, how we interact with those around us and the planet itself. So that progress is recorded as the evolution of consciousness.
So how can this evolution change the face of our interactions?
Well, it's sort of the other way around. It's the quality of our interactions actually influences our progress and our evolution. So the evolution isn't happening independent of our understanding. The evolution collectively is the expression of where we as individuals have got to. So it's a sort of the collective record of where all the individuals have got to in their understanding.
That sounds almost like an Akashic record kind of thing.
Yes. For me, being the eternal pragmatist, I'm always looking at, our day-to-day interactions and understanding and how we operate within, our own being and with all the other beings around us.
Is there some sort of ESP involved in being able to do that?
No, it's something that, we are all born with. The design gives us these faculties. We're all given exactly the same faculties. But as I said before, because we don't know about it, we don't know how to utilize them. But everybody has those faculties. You just need to understand how they are, how to access them, and how to make best use of them. It's also not a sort of overnight process, as you can imagine. It is it's a gradual process of understanding and awakening, and our behavior changes little by little, and there's probably many of us think too slowly, and they could be right.
We have about half a minute left in this segment. What are these faculties you're talking about?
Our ability to notice energy is, our primary faculty, and consciousness gives us that ability. So consciousness is given to everybody that exists, every human being that exists, the ability to notice our experience. If we place our consciousness on energy, for instance, we start to notice energy, we start to be able to mine down into it. And everything we notice with consciousness, we then experience. So that's really the key.
So is it as simple as paying attention to what you're hearing versus paying attention to what you're seeing versus paying attention to what you're feeling?
That can be one aspect of it. That distinction can be one aspect of it. But it actually goes beyond the seeing, hearing, feeling realm, because that is where we create content. But there's a level of energy that lies beyond all of those aspects of being. That is eternal and pervasive and here right now. And it's that we're talking about logging onto.
Well, it is time for that promised break, but on the other side, I'd really like to get into how do we start listening to that other place? So it is time for this short pause. Jeddah and I will return to our discussion on the other side, so you stay right there. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show, and we're coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show, bringing leading-edge information supporting the path to enlightenment. Don't miss all the wonderful things we have to offer on our website, missionevolution.org. And while you are out there, visit our blog. Become part of the discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're speaking with Jeddah Mali. Her website, www.intelligent.life. Jeddah, we were just getting into, we have the five senses that we can change focus from one to the other. Mm-hmm. It seems like what you're talking about is being able to then change focus to our sixth sense, or the sense that registers the energies going on around us. How do you do that?
It's really a case of first understanding that those energies are there all the time. So the reason that our experience of that can be a little bit hit and miss is because that we try to operate blind. We're not really quite sure what we're looking for, what form it comes in. So many of us are, a little bit hesitant or doubtful that it is there. And then on top of that, we have this ego identity that says, we may not deserve to access it, or, other people can do it, but we can't. So all of that actually works against us. So the first thing that we do is provide a comprehensive overview of what we call the model of life, which goes into detail about how existence is structured and what the mechanics are. Then after that, it's so much easier to translate that into experience. You feel that, you have the understanding and the tools available to make that exploration. But in its simplest terms, it's simply noticing the energy that gives rise to your existence. And it's there all the time. You wouldn't be able to operate any of your five senses. You wouldn't be able to think or speak or feel or go about your daily life without that energy being present. So it's really looking at, instead of looking at the garment, looking at the fabric, looking at this sort of underlying presence of energy which gives rise to our experience of life and our experience of being.
It leaves me questioning, and of course we don't know, but if a child never saw an adult walk, would they get up and walk anyway?
Well, that's a very good question, and I don't know the answer, except that I imagine that as human beings we're constantly trying to experiment, so I think we would get there in the end.
So why don't we get into this energy on our own? What has happened that's disconnected us from something that's always there?
I would say we do get into it. I would say that the world around us educates us out of it. Certainly, babies are born into a pervasive energetic environment. They don't have independently arising consciousness that they can move at will to choose that focus. It's sort of given to them as an add-on. And so young children also have that much more collective, unified experience. They're not so quick to, identify themselves as separate or different. If you see young children playing, they are very naturally inclusive. So I think it gets educated out of us, and then we have to find it once again. So I would say that we do have it.
It seems very counterproductive. We would work much better if we didn't lose that. Why? What was the purpose of educating it out of us?
In terms of the longer span of time that evolution of consciousness has gone through, we started, very much as, those infants. We started life. Human beings were in a pervasive, collective, energetic environment. However, we did not have independently arising consciousness to be able to make choices individually. And so the evolution of consciousness took us on that journey of coming more and more into an individualized consciousness, away from a collective consciousness. And one could say that the zenith of that arc is round about now, where we are so individualized, we are so identified with our ego identity as being synonymous with who we are, that we've lost sight of that, collective environment that we all live in. And so now, because we've moved away from the collective experience of that environment, we are now coming back to it, but as individually conscious beings. So there is a purpose to that great arc, but because, it's happening over, many great ages, we're not necessarily seeing the benefit of that within our lifetime.
But we can participate in it.
We are participating in it. All of us who are here on Earth are participating in it. That's why we came. Unfortunately, we don't remember that once we're here. We end up, once again, setting up some kind of identity, and then, spending probably the rest of our lives trying to promote that identity, protect that identity, and engineer opportunities for it. So we tend to spend our lives contributing towards the furthering of that identity, rather than engaged in activities which would bring us closer to our more pervasive collective environment.
Given all that, is it possible to cooperate and work as a continuum at this time?
Yes, it is, absolutely. It's not widespread, and therefore those who choose to do that and are able to do that, have to recognize that they may be, thinking thoughts, feeling feelings, and making choices in their life that are not consistent with how the rest of humanity, you might feel as if you're sort of a fish swimming against the flow for a while. But I think that greater understanding is coming. And certainly if you look, in our lifetime, what seemed like a sort of outlier pursuit has now become mainstream. So I think, society is moving quickly to adopt new practices. But the leading edge of humanity, is always out there by itself.
If we work as a cooperative, what happens to that individuality we just spent all these millennia finding?
Well, it doesn't get lost. We have sort of personality tendencies. We have wiring. There will always be the poets and the accountants. They'll always exist. We'll have wiring which is predisposed towards, one way or another. But our individuality is not, it doesn't get entirely dispensed with, because we start to make individual choices whilst also being in alignment with collective eternal energy. And that is really where it starts to get very creative. So we use our individuality for creative ends rather than ends to separate us.
So more like pieces to a puzzle rather than isolated by themselves.
Exactly right. Yes, beautifully said.
That makes sense. What happens to our intelligence if we were operating as a collective versus as individuals?
Well, again, each one of us has access to that, and really, it is the expression of that individual relationship, our unique relationship to that intelligence, is expressed in how we feel, the choices we make, the thoughts we think, the places we go, the people we interact with, how we work, how we run our home life, where we shop, the kind of art we like. All of that stuff is, expressed. So intelligence doesn't need us to be some, homogenized mass. It can do diversity. We've only got to look at nature to see that, existence does diversity beautifully, and the harmony of all the various aspects of nature is what we can mirror as the human race.
Have there been any intelligence tests that show any difference when a person's able to become more present with the collective? Test
is an interesting word. I mean, certainly there are different ways of trying to measure, which are, of course, themselves, evolving as technology gets clever. I mean, at Intelligent Life, we've developed what we call a mapping system. So we map the current stage of evolution. We can also see where we have evolved from, and we can also map our potential, and not our sort of generic potential, but our specific potential, usually within this lifetime. So we've developed that mapping system. We're in the process of turning that into an app so that people can do that technologically. HeartMath have also developed their heart rate variability monitors called the M-Wave to monitor whether you're in a state of coherence, because being in a state of coherence, heart-brain balance puts you in an optimal state to be able to operate. So there are various, approaches out there, but obviously they're evolving as we evolve.
It's really fun to watch it all come together, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. There are so many wonderful things going on right now. We just need to, keep that focus and remember why we're doing this. I think that sort of the call of the individualized ego identity is ever present. And, some of these good endeavors do get co-opted. So we just need to, maintain the purity of our intent as to why we pursue anything.
That's the key to everything, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Purity of intent.
So.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's time for us to take another commercial break. On the other side, we're going to talk a little bit more about intent and what happens when we come together on things. Jeddah and I will return shortly, so don't leave us. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show, bringing together gifted people of service to our world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. I always love to hear from my listeners. Email me at info@missionevolution.org and suggest a topic or a guest that's on your mind. I'm sure we'll all enjoy them. Our guest this hour is Jeddah Mali. Her website, www.intelligent.life. Jeddah, so what do you see as the advantage of this new way of being in the world? What is going to change as a result?
I think, the very first thing that drops away is a sense of, this pervasive anxiety and doubt, this internal environment of, self-criticism, self-blame that a lot of people are walking around with, which creates, an atmosphere of heaviness and darkness within us. And, even if we are good at hiding it, some people are better than others, most human beings, if they're in an individualized identity state, are carrying a fair amount of discontent and dissatisfaction. So that's the first thing that drops away. So, think of all those times where, that hasn't been the case in your life. We've all had moments of it. We feel lighthearted, we feel freer, we've got a spring in our step, we feel more energetic, we're more likely to smile, we're more likely to be kinder to others, our thoughts elevate. So just on an immediate personal level, how we feel about being who we are, there's a significant uptick there. But, as we extend that, we as individuals are not isolated. We're interacting with our families, so we create a happier, more contented family environment. We bring up our children better. We are more effective and productive as colleagues. We are more likely to help other people. We're more likely to be patient. We're more likely to be kind. We're more likely to be compassionate. And, all of those things has an impact on our health. All of those things has an impact on how we feel about living life, being here, being human, being in this life. And, for me, the most important expression of that is that we have a desire to contribute. It's not all about me, what can I get out of it? It's what can I give? And that contribution is not forced, it's not a sense of onerous duty. It just arises very naturally that when we feel better about ourselves, we want to share that. It's a naturally outward expression. And that contribution can come in many forms, but we see that people who are really connected, this is a sort of a natural outcropping. So all of those are very real and tangible and immediate benefits.
It would seem that when we start operating as a collective, we're no longer left with the illusion of responsibility to do it all alone.
Yes, and it's interesting you use that word responsibility, because this is something that we talk about a lot at Intelligent Life, that we do have responsibility. We have a responsibility to ourselves, to our being, to evolve, whether we realize it or not, or whether we want to take that, or want to undertake that journey or not. That responsibility is there. And in fulfilling that responsibility, we realize, yes, that we are not alone in this. But I think we do also have a collective responsibility to contribute. So responsibility and contribution are two of the words that we talk about a lot, two of the ideas we talk about a lot.
Well, to bring this more back down to earth, it would appear that the current systems and corporations are just really putting increasing pressure on the individual to perform to the exclusion of everything else. What effect is this having on us and our ability to unify?
Well, certainly, if you look at any human environment, any human endeavor or behavior, you can trace that back to a misunderstanding of the design of life and therefore how we should operate. So that pressure, that, stress, that pushing to be more productive, more effective is really pushing for the bottom line. And those companies which are seeking that approach or want to promote that approach are doing so at the detriment of their employees' sense of purpose and meaning and satisfaction and happiness and connection with their colleagues. And that is misguided. Anyone who studies the model of life knows that this energy is by nature connected. What you do to one aspect affects all aspects. So these approaches, although misguided, really demonstrate a misunderstanding of how things are and therefore how to operate.
It's interesting to watch too, because they burn their young people out and replace them with young people, thus never really building substance.
Yeah, I would say that we've come to use the sort of indices of success as being, the amount of money that we can make. And again, because, that is a sort of a created reality rather than an inherent one, an eternal one. Anytime that we pursue a created reality to the exclusion of the eternal reality, we will always find imbalance. And so, that, drive for the bottom line and the quarterly profits is really causing a sort of alienation and a dissatisfaction within those who work in businesses. But that the leading edge is coming through that and looking for different ways to operate in an organizational environment.
So how will we, it's massive right now. I mean, it's kind of like the status quo. So how will we be able to make the switch from competition to cooperation?
That really relies on, a few individual companies making that switch and sticking with it, not just doing it because, it creates marketing for their brand. There was a lot of sort of greenwashing when the environmental movement came around. And now there's a lot of purpose washing that they try to convince us that they are aligned organizations because they have a sense of purpose. Very few organizations have a true sense of purpose and stick to it right the way through their organization. But there are some who are, genuinely undertaking that endeavor. And it's those that people will want to work for. And some initial studies have been done, and the correlation between employee satisfaction and the bottom line of the organization. Now, we're not saying you should strive for the bottom line, but if it comes about, a healthy bottom line comes about through, harmonious activities within the company, then we would say that's just a natural outcome of the internal environment. So I would say there are a few companies engaged in that right now, and I think it's going to come about through those companies demonstrating what's possible and people seeing that there is an alternative. Because, a lot of companies cite the reasons that they don't do things differently as that it's not commercially viable, and that's just simply not true. So, a paradigm shift does need to occur, and there are a few brave souls and a few brave organizations, undertaking that shift.
Well, you made an interesting point. Is like some companies, it's a marketing ploy to appear more green or to appear more unified. But what you're talking about is having it be a very genuine, integral part of the structure, and then the benefits are an organic outcome. How can we teach people that that's possible?
Well, one of the things that we do is we, hothouse leaders. So we put leaders through a very sort of deep training process to help them understand that within themselves and be able to hold that environment steady, that learning steady, that understanding steady for their team. What tends to happen is, certainly within the corporate environment, that leadership is all the time changing. And so it's hard to provide a continuous learning environment. Also, the short-termism that we see everywhere dictates that, unless you can turn a company around within a few short months, it's not deemed a success. But, the evolution of consciousness can't be hurried. So it takes, leaders who are willing to stay the course. And it also takes, employees that are willing to undertake that change. And obviously not all employees are. They feel a lot of people go to work because they want to earn the money. They don't want to undertake some kind of personal development program. But I think the companies of the future are those where those two concerns are naturally melded. It won't any longer be distinct.
We have about half a minute left. What can we do to contribute individually and collectively to this new way of being?
The main thing is just to take a little bit of time each day, just sit quietly and notice that something is giving you life. And that something is incredibly expansive, light-filled, harmonious. It's provided with an abundant source of benevolence and optimism. And so that's available to us if we should take up its offer.
Well, Jeddah, as always, time has flown and we're out of it. I hope the rest of your time in stateside is very enjoyable, and thanks for being on this show.
You're most welcome. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Mm-hmm. Our guest this hour has been Jeddah Mali, the Executive Director and founder of Intelligent Life Ltd. Her website, www.intelligent.life. Remember to join our email family to stay abreast of all the exciting new things we have coming up at missionevolution.org. This has been Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Join us next time as the mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to an evolving world.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you or is someone you know struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.